Hello. Happy Sunday. I don't know why I said happy Sunday. I did. It's because I'm releasing this on a Sunday, but it's actually Friday. That is whack that my brain just did that. Whatever day it is, because what is time, really, if not something completely arbitrary? I'm doing a video. I'm nervous about this video. Ah! Can you tell? Also, I've got a nice cup of tea, which I feel is like a quintessentially British thing, but I actually don't normally drink tea. I'm more of a coffee drinker. But this is a new thing. People can evolve. I'm actually just going to finish my last quarter of toast before I continue, because I'm mid-breakfast, and also you don't need to hear me or see me eat that. Crumb check. Hello. I have come to watch and react to the video that I released. Well, I recorded it in July last year, but I released it end of August time. About feeling worse after your ADHD diagnosis and shame and hopelessness. I'm nervous about it because, well, it's revisiting an actually really hard emotional time in my life, but also remembering all over again that I put this on the internet and I'm about to put it on the internet again. I'm fine with that, but it's just a weird feeling. But the reason why I wanted to do this video is because I wanted to share a little bit more about what was going on in my life and where my head was at that point. Now time has passed, partly because there were some things that I just didn't want to explain properly, and partly because there were some things that I just couldn't explain or make sense of, that obviously hindsight, fine thing, has kind of put into perspective for me. And through that, hopefully share some things to think about and some advice and tips on what to do if you're feeling like I was feeling in this video. Because honestly, I feel like completely different now, what are we, probably 9 months or so later, than I did in this video. And I always feel really cautious of saying that because I don't want it to give you this like arbitrary point of comparison where you'll start feeling like, well, it's 9 months since I had my crisis and Rachel's okay and I'm still crying, because we're all unique, different people with different contexts. And so I don't want this to be a point of comparison, but I wanted to tell you this because I honestly feel so happy and content and confident in my life right now. And 9 or so months ago when I recorded this video, I could not comprehend that that was a possibility for me. So hopefully this is a measure of hope. Shall we do it? Oh, okay. Oh my goodness. Quick bit of context, if you haven't seen my journey so far, or if you have, but you've got obviously a million other more important things in your life than remembering the specifics of my year. At this point, so I was diagnosed with inattentive type ADHD in September 2022. Yes. In January 2023, I had a big period of burnout, had 6 weeks off work, went back to work, got settled into stuff, feeling okay. In that process, I'd also bought a house and moved house. And then this is July 2023, and I'm in the pits. And I'm about to have, I think, this was just before I had another 2 weeks off work, because I was like, I need to sort my head out. This is not good. Cool.
The roller coaster of post-diagnosis is quite a roller coaster. Something I'm really wrestling with in myself, and that I think I've just pieced together, which is why I'm doing this video, is it's really confusing that I'm at a point in my life where I feel simultaneously better than I've felt for a long time. I'm really good about myself, but also the worst I've ever felt about myself at the same time. And part of why I wanted to share this is because I feel this weird tension that I think it's really important that we see people experiencing things that aren't all good and positive. But I find that hard sometimes to communicate because there's almost this fear that, like, if you see the hard parts and the low parts, it negates all of the good. Like somebody...
Nah. That's all I have to say on that. I mean, I agree with what I said, but yes. Ooh, whoa. I remember the first time I ever, pre-ADHD diagnosis, I was actually going through a breakup. So like, not, or about to go through a breakup. So it wasn't like a insignificant life event, but I remember saying to somebody at work, like, when I was falling apart internally, like, people know me as like the sunshine person. So if I'm not being the sunshine person, what do I have left? You can be both. You should be both.
Somebody will go, oh wow, she seems so happy on her videos. She seems so peppy. She seems so comfortable in herself and confident. And now we're finding out that it's all a lie, right? And I think this is something that we all need to kind of really override in ourselves, that like two things can exist at once.
Preach. Sorry, This might just be me supporting things I'm saying. But I need it because I forget too. And then I'm like, oh, well done, past Rachel.
Like, you can be happy and sad at the same time. You can feel grateful and be dissatisfied. And to be honest, that's a huge reason why I sought an ADHD assessment, because it never made sense to me that my self-esteem was just so messed up. Like, why do I think I'm like this amazing genius in one moment and a piece of trash in the other moment? Like, that was always...
By the way, if you feel like this, there is a whole army of us out there. One of the things that I love about working with people, coaching people with ADHD, not that it's about me, but it is weirdly healing for me, because I sit opposite people that say this exact same thing, right? When you, especially if you've been kind of like an overachiever or like an ambitious person, and there's all of this stuff that you've wanted to do, and maybe there's some perfectionism and there's some people pleasing thrown in there, and there's some glimpses of like, this is what I'm good and this is what I enjoy. This tension of amazing genius and worthless sloth are our common thread, I would say. There's a whole load of us out there. I see you. Hey, friend.
Tension. But since my diagnosis, it's only got worse. And I was finding that really scary up until this week, which is what I'm going to get onto. But I also think wrestling with that has made it hard for me to realise when, like, how bad things are.
Things were bad. Hindsight always, yeah.
Especially because as somebody with ADHD, we tend to feel our feelings quite deeply, but they tend to change quite quickly. So I don't always trust when I feel low and down about stuff, because I kind of go like, yeah, but tomorrow's a new day, or like, you just need to bring yourself out of it, or like, it's not all been like this. But even though I'm happy about so many things right now, I cry at least twice a week and feel really low at least twice a week. I don't know why we're putting a number on it, but I'm saying that to kind of illustrate that, like, I've been worrying that I am depressed, but then I've been confused because I'm not always depressed.
I was depressed. And I'll come on to this a little bit further in the video, because I always really struggle to see it at the time, because I can detach myself from the feeling, which is a good thing because I'm not completely lost inside of it. But I just want to talk for a moment on depression, in the context of ADHD, not as a diagnosed depressive disorder. So I don't know if any of you have read the book, Good Reasons for Bad Feelings. It's really interesting. I was halfway through about a year ago, haven't finished it yet. Oh, I'm really into reading at the moment, actually. I might finish it. But there's a really interesting discussion about depression and how it's kind of, it can be misunderstood. So there's depression obviously as a clinical diagnosable mental health condition, but there is also depression as a reaction to life circumstances, right? Like the death of a loved one, the loss of your job, like hard things that happen in your life that create conditions, if you will. Feels like an odd thing to say, but like for depression. And he has some interesting discussions there of like, when does grief go into depression? Because how do you judge when a bad emotion or a negative emotion is beyond what is like a normal length of time? That's a slight sidebar, but the reason that I say that is because depression in ADHD, I think, is so contextual, for me anyway, and I will caveat this by saying that I have never been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder or a depression disorder. For me, it's very contextual, and this is where I was at right in this minute. But that can be scary for people that are experiencing it, but also dealing with it. I am incredibly lucky and fortunate that Mr. Rachel understands this, and that I talk and explain my head, and he listens and he gets it. When I was in this depths, he said to me, you know that this is 100% because of your job, right? And I'll come on to that. Many things to come on to. He's like, you know that this is about the environment and the context that you're in right now, and as soon as you are not in it, you are going to be absolutely fine. And that is really important for me to hear in this situation. For many reasons, I never quite want to believe it and resist it, but that's why it got to this place of being so bad. In ADHD, when the dopamine's not dopamining, when you're not getting what you need from the circumstances of your life, it is depressing. Everything becomes harder. And then intertwined within that, for lots of us, and this was where I was at post-diagnosis, there is a sense of a lifetime's worth of shame. Lifetime's worth. That was right northern. A lifetime's worth of shame and feelings of inadequacy and overcompensating that are all mishmashed into that even that alone is understandable to cause a period of depression, right? So there's two things, I guess, going on, and I think I discussed this here. I'm going to just keep playing.
And I know that's because there are things that have fundamentally changed in me since my diagnosis that no longer match with the environment that I am in. But I feel trapped because I don't feel good enough about myself to believe it can be any different. And this is the thing.
That was the key thing for me here, right? Without, like, and I think why so many people are getting diagnosed later into life is because you reach a point where you've run out of options. Like, this environment didn't work for me, this environment didn't work for me, this relationship didn't work, what's going on here?
And the main shift that has freaked me out since this diagnosis, right? When you don't know what the issue is, but you know there's something that just doesn't seem to sit right about yourself, you overcompensate, you burn out, you get exhausted, you're constantly trying to problem solve and make sense of it. And that's not good. That's what leads to burnout, and that's what leads to the low self-esteem and stuff. But that is an active emotion. It's a forward emotion. Since my diagnosis, I went through what I've read about is quite common, which is a honeymoon period where you suddenly go, oh my God, this wasn't my fault. There's a reason why I am the way I am. Look at this whole new world. Look at all of these great things. And I went through that and it was amazing. But the place that I've been in the last few months is going, now I know these things about myself. I have to give up a sense of hope that it's ever going to be different. And I know that's not accurate, right? Because
okay, so I don't necessarily disagree with that now, but I can tell that there's a bit of a depressive lens on it. There are many reasons for the burnout that I experienced in January 2023. And actually, I was going to do this type of reaction video for that burnout moment. So if you would like to see that, let me know in the comments and I'll do another one of those as well. One of the reasons I recognise now that I burnt out during that time is because actually the diagnosis gave me this positive lease of life. I kept journaling about it as this flame. It was this creative flame. Now, for me, that's because I was already in a position before my diagnosis where I knew what I wanted to do and I knew what I was good at. And not all of you will be in that position, right? You might be at the starting point of your journey of unpicking and unraveling what is at the heart of me and what I like and what I want to do in my career. But I guess was in a good position that I'd sorted that out. I'd kind of been through that journey. And so when I got the diagnosis, it gave this clarity and this fire was burning to do all of the stuff, essentially to do the stuff that I'm doing now. But at the time, I had a full-time job and I was dealing with all of my emotions and I didn't have space for it. And I was angry because I didn't have space for it. And I wanted to put it places. And so I was putting it places and I was doing the stuff, but I didn't have enough bandwidth because you only have so much time and energy, right?
Of course things can change. The whole point and the whole value of understanding yourself better is being able to use different strategies and build a better life for yourself. But just there's a fundamental hard thing to let go of, which is feeling like a piece of hopefulness has been stripped away. And that's what has been worrying me, because hopelessness is not an active emotion, it's a depressing emotion. So whenever I've been coming up against challenges, most of the time I feel hopeless in those challenges because I can't see a way through how I feel about myself.
It's honestly wild to me watching this now. I would say that I stopped feeling like this within a month because I left my job, and I'll explain more about that. So this turned into my entire Sunday afternoon of reacting and reflecting on this video. So rather than do it all in one go, I've split it into a 5-part series that I will be releasing every day this week. Or if you're coming later down the line, it will be available to you in 5 parts under my Reflections playlist. I'll be focusing each one on a particular emotion and experience. So we've got one about shame, we've got one about quitting my job, we've got one about building feelings of self-efficacy, and about dealing with an inner critic. And I'm particularly excited about that final one because I'm going to be introducing you to somebody or something that has been really helpful and important to me in rebuilding my self-esteem over the last few years. So stay tuned for that one. You may notice my attentional fatigue growing by, I think, 3 or 4, because things get a little bit chaotic, but bear with me. Lots of reflections to share and some tangible and helpful, hopefully, tips for you to take on board as you are rebuilding your self-esteem as well. So hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the comments.